Hi, this is Dave Reed of Digital Resources Incorporated, and we're going to be talking about some new features of the release about to be sent for beta testing by our hollow metal engineering managers. And the point of these particular features are to try to help insulate the system from potential problems that happen if you interact with the forms of the system, or actually not just the forms, but interact with the system in any meaningful way while it's processing. So we had some reports by our beta testers of component sizes that would change in the middle of processing a group. So let's say you're processing a door, and the values used to configure the narrow skin would be different than the values used to configure the wide skin. Well, of course, this was a tremendous concern to us, and we spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out what was happening, because whenever we would run the system, even on their computer under the same conditions supposedly that they ran it on, it ran perfectly. And finally we figured out that it had to do with inadvertent clicks in the system. So, let's say someone would want to, the system was processing, but someone would bring up a schedule and click on it, or do an import to or from the database or something like that. And what that would do is that would change the state of the database while it was processing, and the system would end up retrieving different values in the middle of a group. So we did a lot of work internally to try to insulate the system from that. But what I want to show you in this video are the behavioral aspects of what we've done, so that you won't be surprised by the different appearance that you get when you process. So I'm going to bring up a release here, and I'm going to click on process and watch what happens. As soon as I click on process, the status form fills up the screen, and if I minimize status, all of the forms that were open behind it are gone. So I had the opening schedule open. I had the job rec form loaded. It wouldn't be unusual for our customers to have a hardware or elevation variant or profile form open. All of those, they're still loaded because we don't want to change the state of anything you were doing. They're just made invisible so that you can't interact with them while the processing is happening. Now, we did add buttons here, but they should really be, you should avoid using them unless you have a strong reason. And in fact, there are settings you can make in your spreadsheet to hide these buttons so that they're not available to you. But I'll show you in a moment that in case you do have a need to bring up a form. Now, see, it's finished, and as soon as it's finished, in addition to the done message coming up, the forms that were open reappear in their same state that they were when you started the process. Now, let's do this again. So, that's funny. Okay, so what I did in order to get these buttons back is I just maximized the status form. So now if I hit so let's minimize it again, or make it smaller. If I click on show loaded forms, I can force it, even while it's processing, to show me the form. So let's say I wanted to see the trace as it's processing. That might be a legitimate reason to do this, but we would strongly recommend that you not do this. And if you bring the status form back up, you can go back to them hidden even while it's processing. Now, if you're interested in getting rid of these buttons so that no one can do this even by mistake, just let us know, or I'll send an email out to everybody showing what the spreadsheet commands for eliminating these buttons. But this is a new feature. We didn't want to, mistakenly create a side effect here, so we did build in the capability for you to bring up the forms if you need to. Now let's do one other thing. Let's start the process again, and let's say we abort the process in the middle, and you can see that the abort is smart enough to make the forms visible, and then abort always closed all the forms. And you can always, if for some reason you get confused, some non-standard way of aborting, or some sequence which leaves the form invisible, you can always just go back and go to JobRec, and that should make everything that was visible visible again, that was visible before you start the process visible. And then I would close the forms and then reopen it, and you should be back at a ground state. Now let me show you some other things. Let's once again start the process, and this time I'm going to do what I told you not to do, which is show loaded forms. And now I'll go back to my schedule sheet, and while it's processing, I'm going to click around. And this is new. So even if we didn't hide the form, we do recognize, we built in a lot of logic. This took a lot of time. It's many lines of code. But we now detect when you're clicking around while the system is processing, and you get an error message. Now, it'll keep processing if I say OK there, but honestly, if I got that message, I would restart the process over again. And the other bit of good news is that though that information is going to be put into our trace file, that's also something new that was not true before, is that when we change the state of these, when we do this clicking around and it changes the state of certain variables, it's now my trace. There are now indications of where these variables get changed, and this was not true before. Quite a bit of work in terms of protecting the system from what would be very hard to find errors caused by interacting with the database while it's processing. We do still encourage you not to interact with the database. So that doesn't just mean clicking around. You should not be doing you should not be doing imports to or from the database that's being used for processing. You basically should not be changing the state of the processing computer while it's processing. Processing these jobs is a very complex task, and it should be left alone while it's working. But this should hopefully make the system more resistant to problems, and help us trace where problems happen if they do happen. Thank you very much, and please feel free to call me or contact me should you have any questions. Thank you.